Good afternoon, Internet world. This is Travis Waldstein with Air Serve Heating and Air Conditioning and Waldstein Plumbing in Council Bluffs, Iowa. On this week's episode of Circle of Trades, this week we have, yes, another Waldstein that's out there. He got dropped on his head. He's a Bears fan and he's a White Sox fan. So I don't know how we claim him, but Mr. Steve Waldstein, how you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing great, Trav. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and you know I bash your teams too. So
You know what?
yeah.
When you're a Bears fan and White Sox fan, you're used to it.
Hey, just draft Caleb Williams, and then you'll never hear the end of it
Yeah.
from me. So
I don't know about that. The Bears have a problem of turning good quarterbacks into crap. So
yeah,
that's just the way it is.
and then the Packers got Jordan Love, so it's all
Yeah,
it's all
okay.
good.
It's
So
all good. It's all good.
sorry. So, well, for those of you that don't know, some family members that claim us, or at least claim me. They all claim him. They don't all claim me, but that's okay. Steve has got a background in education and technology. He went to. I'll let you tell a little bit about your background. There's no sense me telling about what your background is and the reason we got you on here today.
Well, yeah, I grew up on the family farm, in the 80s. So spent a lot of time. Dad he's retired now, but was a crop and livestock farmer for all the years I was there on the farm. I decided that I had some great experiences with teachers in my high school, and I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. I went to UNI, got my degree in, basically they called it tech ed, but it was shop, and I taught for almost 20 years in the past. No, not past. Now, I spent 11 years at Northwest Iowa Community College as the dean of all the current technical programs.
Yeah. And somewhere in there, you spent some time at Ball State too, didn't you? Getting a master's degree?
Yeah, I
or
did.
something like
I took a leave from. I was teaching at Dyke New Hartford, and I took a year off to go get my master's at Ball State, and then came back to Dyke and taught there for several more years after that. And I guess I did have a little spiel. I was still in education, but I left public ed and went into the private world and worked for Fisher Controls out of Marshalltown for 5 years. Then I went back into public ed, and so that's where I've been.
Yeah, and the family of football fans, you're probably the best football coach in the family too, from what I've understood. Is that correct?
Well,
I should have started that argument.
I've been fortunate enough to coach some really good student athletes over the years.
Yeah, no, I know you had some Dyke New Hartford teams and whatnot, but we won't get into that because I'll probably beg somebody else, man. That's okay. I got broad shoulders, so
Yep. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but so anyway, so we're talking about your background working at teaching shop in high school, and then at the community college you were dean at several programs, and I'd been up to Shelton Cup. But you wanted to talk about CT, talk about younger kids getting into trades, different things, and you've got a lot of knowledge in this. So I guess I want to hear. You had a lot of thoughts or had some input you wanted to put. So figured we let you get on here today, and this might be more than a one-time conversation too. I'll let the world know that. But so kind of let's jump into that conversation a little bit. So explain to what people don't know what CT is when you're talking CT.
CTE, Career and Technical Education.
Okay, all right.
I think it's important for people that might be watching or listening that when it comes to the high school setting or junior high school setting of what we might call shop class, there are really two different types of programs that are in the state of Iowa and also in the country. And that's what we call career and technical education, which is the traditional woods, metals, automotive. And then there's technology education, which is a philosophy of trying to live in a technological world and learning to live in a technological world. Similarities, but more differences than similarities to that. And the reason for that is, as we know, I think current technical education has its ups and downs, hills and valleys. Yes. For several years, it's really takes on an important role. And then it costs too much money, and you see school districts cutting the programs. So the tech side of it was trying to grasp onto something that every single person in in this world has to deal with, and that's technology. Not to be
Yeah.
confused with computer technology because it is different. But
Yes.
I went to Ball State. I said you and I and Ball State, and they were maybe more of the tech ed philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came out teaching, I was teaching more of the career and technical. Now, maybe
Yeah.
when I was first out there teaching it at Dyke New Hartford, I maybe didn't appreciate the career and technical as much as I should, even though I grew up on a farm. But when I
Yeah.
left and went into industry and taught all around the world in the United States and saw how really the people with hands on what they were doing and their backgrounds, it got my juices going again. I wanted to get back into public ed. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when really I think I started to have even more appreciation for career and technical education. And then moving
Mm-hmm.
on to the NCC, it just continued to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things going on out there. There's so many credits that our high school students have to take, you know,
Yes.
um, that are required, that are the important classes. I think we've all heard of STEM, science,
Yeah.
technology, engineering, and math. And
Yep.
to be honest, as a shop teacher, we were teaching STEM. I taught STEM all 20 years I was in the classroom. But because I
Yeah.
was a shop teacher, I wasn't looked upon as the important STEM.
Yeah.
You know,
It's applied, so it don't
yeah,
count.
you
Is
got
the
that
word
right.
is
Yeah,
yeah. That's
you got that.
yes.
And I'm sorry, but teaching metallurgy and welding, I don't know how much more STEM you can get than that.
Oh,
You know,
you absolutely can.
Mhm.
My wife's got family; they're metallurgical engineers. Guess where they start
Yeah,
learning at? Middle school and high school, shop class. Working on, fixing stuff on the farm. That stuff doesn't
yeah.
magically fix itself. So,
No, yeah, and you're exactly right. And that's some of the you can maybe tell I get excited about that because they're so important, but yet they're looked upon in the education world and the Department of Ed. I'll even say that Department of Ed here in Iowa as not being important. If I wasn't a physics teacher, and you're
hmm,
right, so I couldn't teach applied physics or anything as a shop teacher and do all those things. But what I did see is when you take a class instead of teaching construction, for instance, and
hmm,
selling it as if you're going to go into construction, take this class. You
yeah,
sell it as, do you want to own a home someday? Well, if you do want to own a home someday, you need to take this class because we're going to go over all sorts of things of learning to live with a home, of which some things you can fix on your own and some things you got to call the expert in, you being one of them.
yeah.
But,
Me
but
exactly.
to be honest, some kids don't even know you have to change a filter out, Travis, in a
Uh,
furnace. So,
Filter don't understand how electricity comes to the home. Yeah, it's amazing the learning experience you get owning a home.
well,
So,
yeah. And so, then you get the females in, which I think we all know in current technical education, we don't have a lot of females that
need
are out.
more actually. Need a
Yeah,
lot more.
right. And so when you start doing that, students start coming in and seeing those type of experiences. But then a student can say, "Well, I really like this, so I want to go on to the community college maybe and get more experience into construction." Okay, great. And then you might have some saying, "Wow, I learned a lot, and I think that I think now I could maybe at least draw and add on a deck to my house, possibly,
Hmm.
or I might have some ideas on how maybe to form up and pour a concrete slab." Like I said,
Yep.
there's some things that obviously experts are great at, but we all know in owning a home, there are a few things that you could maybe do, on your own. Um, so really, that's where my philosophies come from. And then going to
Hmm.
the community college, all the gen eds that even our 1 year and 2 year programs had to take.
Hmm.
I just think
Oh
the
yeah.
state of Iowa and the Department of Ed needs to rethink that. Don't get me wrong. There are some things that those gen ed courses are good for, but when I
Hmm.
have automotive and diesel students taking pottery, ceramics, because it
We're
filled
not
one,
talking the pot you smoke, folks. We're talking the
it
stuff
filled one
you
of
make.
those gen ed requirements. Couldn't I take that 3 credit class and teach them more into that field that they're going to be going into? So,
Yeah.
those are just some of the things that I think we need to take a hard look at. But I will say, in the state of Iowa, especially in Northwest Iowa,
Hmm.
high school industrial tech programs, CTE programs, are flourishing. We
Yes. Oh,
have,
absolutely.
yeah, we have small schools, We have 8-man schools, football. I'm going back to football now. So we have
Yeah,
small
yeah,
8-man all the way up to 3A schools in this
yeah.
area. And they are all either adding on to their industrial tech programs, or
Yeah.
they are building new, 10, 20,000 square foot buildings, rooms, labs for these current technical programs.
Hmm.
And they are doing some phenomenal things. We
Wow.
have one program down at Marcus Meriden Claycorn. I'm going to talk about
Hmm.
that. MMCRU, Marcus Meriden Claycorn Remsen Union. And it is a small school,
Yeah, it very
but
much is.
they have 2 full-time CTE instructors. One of them being Matt Hansen. And
Okay.
he their superintendent, their school board, their community, they get it. He is
Yeah.
he is teaching students kind of like that philosophy of construction that I just talked about.
Yeah.
Students that can go right into industry and have some industry standards met
Hmm.
or credentials met, such as maybe they have finished some level 1, level 2 welding standards. But he's also has a program where they're getting some hands-on experience in John Deere tractors, and they're working with John Deere in getting these students some certifications, so they have them coming out that they could go in and work right away for Deere. And
Yeah.
then
That's huge.
yeah, and then quite a few of them come up to NCC. So it's just
Hmm.
this well-rounded area because not every student wants to weld, not every student wants to work with wood or be um, a diesel mechanic. Where
Hmm.
some programs in the state maybe focus on one area and they eliminate all those other students. Down there at MMCRU, they got it.
Hmm.
They're thriving, and I'm so happy for those students to have all those opportunities. And if you look at the amount of females that are taking those classes,
That's
huge.
even better.
I believe
Yeah.
it. I think it. In talking with Matt last time, I heard 85, 90% of the students in high school at some point in time take a class from him, and that's an elective.
Oh, that's yeah. He must be a good teacher then. Likable, so appears to get something out of it.
Yeah.
I kind of trip to life skill, and doing what I
Mm-hmm.
do. And one of these days, I'm gonna get my brother-in-law on this. And he went to school. He went to high school in Spencer, went to Nyack over Mason City electronics program. First job he had out of college was he went to school to work in a packing house. Or they,
Sure.
well, what's electronic technician in a packing house? I got news for you. You will learn a bunch of different trades. Go spend about 2 years in a packing house because you do the electrical, you
Mm-hmm.
do the HVAC, you do the plumbing,
Mm-hmm.
you when you're the maintenance guy, you do everything. I mean, it's maybe changed a little bit today, but the degree got him in the door. The 2 year degree did. But here's the thing now by today's law with the CT, you don't even have to necessarily go to college if you've got you know the wherewithal and the mindset and understand it and have the good fundamental base to whether you
Mm-hmm.
go work in the industry to
Yep.
where they teach you. Like right now, we have an apprenticeship program with what we do because
Mm-hmm.
there's with us being in Southwest Iowa, close to Omaha. I don't feel what's being taught down here. At college level is where
Mm-hmm.
I want it. Been a lot of discussion, but it's needed. It's terribly needed. It's why you're seeing apprenticeship. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think what's happened, and probably more so, with agriculture. I mean, you take not just John Deere, but let's talk to talk packing houses or these hog barns or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. They've got to be a lot more technical as far as what they do.
Yeah. That's,
Um, I mean, I remember 30 years ago going out and, when Uncle Brian had hogs and, they'd give birth and we'd have to do the castration, all that
yeah.
fun stuff. Anymore, it's clean lab stuff. You don't show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, your dirty hog, your hog pants, whatever else. I
Yeah.
mean, it's science.
Yeah.
Listen,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do what you do 30 years ago or you won't be in business.
No, I agree. I like I said, growing up with Dad, my dad taught me so much. At the time, I don't think you realized what all my dad was teaching me.
Hmm.
But we had a farrow to finish hog operation, and
Yep.
didn't look anything like the hog operations now. I mean,
No.
nothing like that. And even now with the herbicides that are going into the seed for soybeans and corn and stuff, you don't see a lot of people walking beans anymore, riding a bean bar, all
Yeah.
those things. They're not out there. Do you even see a buttonweed or a cocklebur out in the field much anymore with all the stuff that they're spraying and doing on there? It's just changed a whole lot.
Yeah, you don't unless they're well, even more, even if you're lazy for us, and I don't want to say anybody's lazy, but
I
if
know,
you're not one that takes that extra effort, yeah, you're not going to see that. So you're
right?
100% right in that, and that's huge. So, but
I think you mentioned something too with the skill sets. One thing that I thought was very interesting in my time at Northwest Iowa that community college I really hadn't planned on was the amount of students coming into the career and technical programs that had zero skill sets coming in.
they don't
You,
have bad habits.
well, or bad habits, but I mean zero. They didn't have
Yeah.
to take a high school shop class. They didn't have a high school shop class in some cases.
Hmm.
A lot of them, the family farm's not there anymore.
No, it's
It's really
not.
dying. Um, some of them came from single parent households, but they came on a tour to Northwest Iowa Community College and they saw, again, I'll take manufacturing. Wow, that looks like fun. That's what I'm going to go into.
Hmm.
And they had no idea how to read a ruler. They had no idea how to use adjustable end wrench correctly, or any type of wrench for that matter. They had no idea there were different sizes of Phillips screwdriver heads.
Hmm. They
Drill
did.
bits.
They didn't know that blinker fluid was a myth.
Story for another time, but I got a good one about that. Um, but they didn't have it where the students were coming in with that. So we had maybe 1 out of 20 that didn't do that, but now we are having 19 out of 20 that didn't have the skill set. So how do we get them up to speed? And that's with auto, diesel,
Hmm.
everything. And
Well,
that was a lot of conversations, that we had
hmm.
at NCC to how do we manage that? Because they just
Well,
didn't have it.
well, yeah. And if you do put Benji in a bottle, I think that education, has to change. And some places have been more progressive, but some people have. Listen, it's important to learn how to read. It's important how to write. It's important to be able to count to five. And I some days struggle with that, but but I feel, what this kind of better something with school. How about financial literacy? At home, the home ec. I hate saying it. I know we're not talking home ec stuff.
No,
How to balance your damn checkbook.
I,
I've got soon to be 20-year-old that I had to explain to him what a checkbook was. That yes, you need to balance it. Make sure it's like you think you just. I don't think about because I got a checkbook. It's like I can balance it no problem, but they
it,
did teach it at Lewis Central, and then nothing against Lewis Central, but they didn't teach it.
nobody teaches it really, or it's an elective. It's not required. It's funny you say that because my 20-year-old had to write a check because he's getting a new apartment. Had to write a check for the deposit, and I said, "Well, Brady, when's the last time you wrote a check?" He goes, um,
Never.
"Yeah." He goes, "I don't know if I have." And I said, "Well, he's living with his sister and her husband right now." I said, "Well, make sure talk to Taylor. She'll help you out on what you need." But yeah, they just don't do it. And to be honest, after I said that, I'm like, man, I wonder how many checks Taylor's written in their lifetime.
Probably not a lot.
Not a
I
lot,
mean,
no. And then on the
you
other
got a
end,
debit card.
well, on the other part of that, my dad, I don't know when it was, a couple months ago, he was asking about a debit card. And I'm like, what are you talking? What do you mean debit card? He goes, well, I'm getting a debit card. And I'm like, you never had a debit card? He's like, no. And I'm like,
You always paid cash.
okay, yeah.
Cash
The
your
other
check.
side too. So, but no, in home ec, I think those are important skills.
Yeah.
That's where I learned to cook. I didn't spend a lot of time cooking with my mom. I was out helping dad, but I took home ec class and I learned, there's a difference between a big T and a little T when you're measuring stuff. And
Doesn't stand for Travis. Is that what you're telling me?
well, but those are really important. But you're right, reading, writing, all that stuff is good too. But at the community college level, in the career and technical education, all the gen eds they have to take, 12, 15 hours in a 2-year program. You're in electrical. You're taking AC and DC theory, where you're getting taught Ohm's law and how to calculate all of those things. Then you have
Yeah.
to take a elementary they call it elementary algebra class that's really
Hmm.
basic level. Well, the state has gotten smart on that a little bit, where you can you can get dual credit, let's call it, for it. So if you have to have a math credit, 3 credits of math, if you take ACDC theory, you might be able to get, one half of your math credits if you take those courses. I mean, they're on the right path, but it's still not working correct.
It's not a one for one. If you think about it, you go back to 100 years, 120 years ago, that's when you had Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. They talk about the
Mm.
1900s World's Fair, I think it's
Yeah.
1800s World's Fair, and where it's going to be AC powered or DC powered, and how that was 100 years ago, folks. You start to think about where technology is, and I think what happens is, and unfortunately, so, well, we've moved past it. The problem is you still got to maintain it. If you don't have the systems or functions in place and someone working and maintaining, because they're advancing all the time. You're not the grid in 1900 that was on is not the grid in 2024. That's powering
Mhm.
it, and with all electronics and all the digital and everything you
Mhm.
got today, it would crash.
Yeah.
And you forget that. Not to mention, why you have air conditioning in schools? Well, it's because everything's electronics. You want the kids to have a safe,
Mhm.
better place to learn. You don't want them sweating their butt off in the
Yeah.
classroom. Plumbing.
Right.
You don't want. I mean, those are just the stuff that I deal with. But I think that we've lost the focus. Oh, we've moved past that. But the reality is, if who's doing these, who's doing, and the whole thing with school or post secondary education or apprenticeship
Yeah.
is make sure there's people coming down to the pipe, because a lot of kids I know that are that age, and I encourage them. They don't know what they're going to do. Don't go waste your money. Spend 2 years at the community college if you don't know what to do, because you're
I,
throwing your money away.
I agree with you on that. And when you look at it, um, in the automotive programs now, they carry around a computer in their hands. That's their
Mm-hmm.
number one tool, is
Yeah.
the computer, because as we know, everything's electronic. It's no longer really a fix it. It's a figure out what's wrong, take off what's not working, put on a new one. So
Yeah.
and again, that's the way technology is. Is there the TV repairman that there used to be back in the 70s and 80s? No, it's not there. And
Yeah.
no longer are these students um, tinkering around rebuilding carbs in cars and things.
Yeah.
It just doesn't
Yeah,
happen
yeah.
anymore.
You're not adjusting distributor caps.
No.
If the time is off, you're
Mm.
you're probably at a program and find out, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what injector is not opening or what's not working to feed that injector. Yeah, it's a totally different
Mm-hmm.
ball game. So
The lowest enrollment programs that we had at NCC were the programs I always said you didn't need to have a degree to get a job.
yeah,
Welding, manufacturing, heavy equipment. Um, those were our lowest enrollment, because kids who wouldn't go get trained on the job and get paid for it instead of paying an instructor to teach them.
oh,
I mean,
exactly.
you wouldn't do that. But like our electrical, our ICW, our ET programs, you needed to have that degree and get that, get passed on the test to really get a good job in those areas. Those were the ones that we had full numbers in, and we had a waiting list. And
Yeah,
our power line program, the reason that it's always full at NCC, our instructors will tell you, when you're done here, you're not going to be a power lineman, but you're going to be, heads above anybody else to get into an apprenticeship program.
hmm,
And that's where it was at.
that's exactly where it's at.